Let's compare BDO's combat to WoW or Final Fantasy 14. I mean, I'll tell you this. I think Classic WoW's combat is better than Final Fantasy 14 or BDO.
All right, it's Reactception. We are reacting to the reaction, which I've seen other reactions on this reaction. So you guys have sent me this, and I also got to see a little quick take on my boy Blue checking this out. So Asmon has got some takes on this. I haven't heard many good things. I've tried to stay away from watching it in its entirety. I've only seen little bits and pieces, and yeah. So let's just dive right into this. We're going to talk about this, and I am very, very interested in hearing the thoughts on Crimson Desert and Black Desert, more specifically apparently to do with the combat system, but whatever. I'm not going to spoil this. Let's just dive into this, and then we'll talk about this along the way.
So this is coming out. I guess this is part of a showcase that they're going to be putting out tomorrow. Crimson Desert, we've heard about Black Desert. This is the same developer, but it's more of a single player focused game. I don't know if there's going to be any synchronous gameplay like Monster Hunter.
Who's excited for Crimson Desert? All my BDO people. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of on the fence. I'll definitely check it out, but I don't know. We'll see.
But what I do know is this is a game coming out, and it's going to have at least a focus on single player. On a baseline, though, this game has looked good enough to where like it's a good single player game.
Yeah, I'll give it that. It looks graphically stunning. Okay. See, I feel like this is potentially BDO, and then this guy right here potentially could be Asmongold. Just talking about our game, talking about our baby with malicious intent. Unbelievable. Sorry, let's go on. Carry on.
What? This don't concern you, outsider.
Yeah, literally. He's like, hold up. This doesn't concern you. How dare ye react to the reaction of the reaction? Take your eyes off what you see. Wait, what am I seeing here? You mean to tell me Crimson Desert got different races before we did? Where the hell are my orcs? I want to play an orc. Sorry. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm taking this personally. All right, nice. I can still see that we haven't taken off screen shake. Love that.
This is just a cinematic. This is fun.
Okay. Now we're into gameplay.
Wow.
Smooth transition. I like it.
Nice. Okay. So you can like talk to people or kill them?
You got any idea
That's
what
cool.
you're doing?
I think.
Wow, dialogue. That's amazing.
Spirit will punish us all. Why on?
Do you hear that? The spirit will punish us all. This man clearly came from Black Desert.
Over there!
Is that the Yeti?
We've all got to doomed ourselves!
Yeah, it's the Yeti.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
This man spawned straight out of Jade Starlight Forest.
That's clever.
Yeah, I'll give it this. The so far the scenery and stuff like that in terms of just looking at this game is quite stunning. They've done always a good job at things like this in the ambient setting.
I like when things like that happen in video games and they make sense.
I just keep looking at this and all I can think of is just Black Desert remastered when it first came out. Because as you watch the sword swing, all the sparks and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, graphically, this looks pretty stunning.
It's okay. It's not great. It's okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a tutorial fight for sure. You know, with all of these Black Spirit logos and Black Desert logos I'm seeing, are we going to see a special guest appearance from the Spirit? That's what I question. Wow, he's got a second phase. Sparta kick. Okay. Slow-mo with explosive arrows already? You mean to tell me I got to go through no temples, no fire, water, ice, air, earth, and I already get to start off with explosive arrows? Sign me up. The mooses are salivating right now. That is the most console looking UI I have seen. I swear to God. Did they take this UI from BDO Mobile? What is it? Oh, it is console. Might be the only console game that actually properly runs the PA's made. Hey, Doomers, console may not be doomed. We have a way out for console players. All right. Yeah, you guys have something to look forward to. I won't lie, though. I'm not a fan of the Comic Sans font here, though. This is kind of whatever to me. Wow, nice. I really feel like this fight is just way too long for it looking this easy.
He dead now?
Cut his head off already.
Yeah, it looks like he dead. That's
About
yeah,
time.
he probably dead now.
Phase 4. Inbound.
If I look at this combat and I compare it to, for example, like the Kadan first Berserker game, I think the Kadan game completely clears this in pretty much all ways. I think that stylistically it's more interesting. I think that visually it looks better. This is kind of messy, in my opinion. And I also think that the mechanics are more easily readable and they look more satisfying.
I'd have to agree with some of this too, because even with PA developing this game, when we look at Black Desert Remastered, when it came into the game, even if you turn on the settings, it's just super shiny, so much glare. It's like an over glorified Minecraft shader being thrown on top of this and throwing in as many sparks and particle effects as you could possibly just throw down there, but just less enough that you don't have to put an epilepsy warning. The combat itself is always going to look and probably feel pretty decent based on how the game and BDO has felt. We'll get to his opinion on that one in a second. But I'd have to agree, because if you think about this, this is probably one of the first bosses that you're going to run into. And there's probably more things going on that you actually need to be concerned about in this, because this is most likely not going to be a boss that you run repeatedly, where you have to start figuring out those little timings and those little finesses in order to dodge those certain things that are happening, such as the falling shrapnel and things of that nature. So I totally get where he's coming from in that sort of regard. And I don't think that they're going to make this in terms of a Souls-like type of game if they are trying to do that. If they are trying to do that, then maybe we'll see that as we progress into later bosses. But I'm not getting that type of vibe. I do feel like even if this is an earlier boss that you start running into in the early portions of the game, this fight, especially if it's in the early portion of the game, this fight is going to be longer than it needs to. And there's just so much glitter and glam that is being shoved into your face that it's borderline a nuisance. I have felt that way about remastered mode when we talk about remastered mode in Black Desert Online specifically.
I look at this and I think to myself, this seems like a game that I'll play, but it doesn't seem like a game that I'm going to have like a lot of really fond memories of, in the same way that I do of like Elden Ring or Dragon's Dogma 2.
And that's exactly what I've said in terms of prediction for Crimson Desert Online. I think this title is just going to have a kind of a dead on arrival type of taste. People are going to one and done it, and how good the substance of that content is going to determine its replayability. But the track record of PA, from what I've seen, I don't think it's going to hold. I mean, I'd love to be wrong and have another game that I'd truly enjoy playing in my back pocket. But with the reputation and the track record of PA, I just don't see it happening in Crimson Desert either. You know, hope for the best, but I'm expecting the worst.
Right now, what this seems like is it seems like a generic fantasy, medieval European, exploration game where you fight through a lot of the obvious tropes, and it's just kind of average. This isn't a game of the year contender.
I was just about to say that.
At least not based off of this combat. Some of the combat games are garbage, but some of them are absolutely not. And I don't think that Black Desert Online's combat has evolved and is as nearly as good as people think that it is.
How can you say that BDO combat hasn't evolved as a person who has expressed the opinion that you want to have all of your skills on the hotbar, when the combat system in this game is just not like that? How do you know what has evolved when you haven't even taken it for what I would consider a proper test drive? Now, obviously, there's personal preference in what you want to play, and you are completely entitled to that opinion and what you enjoy. Hasn't Asmon just kind of not really scratched the surface of what this combat system in the game actually is? And in terms of evolving in the game, I definitely can't say there have been things that have been game changing in terms of the combat system, but I definitely think that the combat system in Black Desert Online, in terms of the MMO genre, is absolutely the best combat system on the market if you give it that chance. Like, if we talk about World of Warcraft combat system, I don't think it's bad. I don't think tab target's bad. I don't even think action tab target is bad. It's much slower paced. But being so used to the combat system in Black Desert Online and then going over to World of Warcraft, that combat system is so incredibly easy to digest and understand because of the fast-paced nitty-grittiness that the combat system in Black Desert Online has to offer. I don't even think he's scratched enough of the surface in the combat system to even have a valid opinion on that.
I think that it's very clunky. I think movement in this game feels kind of, it looks like it's
clunky if you're bad with it. Let's be clear. Classes do absolutely have clunkiness to it. They do absolutely feel clunky if you're bad with it. But there are certain skills that are meant to be tied into certain skills to find that fluidity. If it feels clunky, it's most likely you're just fucking bad with it. And that's okay. But not everyone is going to want to dive into it and input the level of effort that it requires for you to find that fluidity in the combat system. It requires so much more skill than people honestly are aware of. But again, it's not for everybody, and that's perfectly fine.
I think this game is going to have kind of the same feel to it.
Sure.
Because it's just going to have the fast-paced combat, except for you're still playing with these ankle weights on.
But even in that fast-paced combat, there are certain things that you do have to be aware of that give you that advantage in terms of those protections and those things that you run within when to apply these super armors, when to apply these iframes, when to go into combos with unprotected gaps and things like that. There's so much of a deeper knowledge that is required that just requires patience and practice. And again, not everyone wants to put in that time into that system because it's actually pretty overwhelming. And then coming from those traditional MMOs, I can understand why combat systems like this are unappealing based on what they've been used to. But if you jump into a game like this, being used to having your skills on a hotbar from 1 to 0 and unable to do that in this game, I can understand why it wouldn't be appealing, because this game requires you to be more engaged than it leads on. I would like to see this game have an easier accessible route to its combat system for players like that. But to simply, I don't know, I just feel like so much more time would be involved to actually have like a valid opinion on the combat system of BDO. I have to strongly disagree with some of these things. But again, he's entitled to how he feels. He likes what he likes, so I totally get it.
But I think that the game does take unnecessary L's with certain things, like just the way that hit collision works in this game, I think is kind of mediocre. And I think that they really should go back to the drawing board and think a little bit about how hit detection and combat works, because I don't think BDO is as good as the player base thinks that it is.
What? What? Bro, I run that back one more time.
Because I don't think BDO is as good as the player base thinks that it is.
That's like the number one thing I actually love about the game. The grinding content is the number one thing that I like to do in this game. And the combat system is one of the things that allows me to feel that adrenaline, feel that rush. And then on top of that, doing those fast-paced combos, it's like some people don't realize you can proc like 6 moves within a handful of seconds. Within those 6 moves, you're now proccing special buffs and add-ons that come with those moves. There's also a variety of protections and different things that fall into place with those combos being used and all those moves in a short period of time. The combat system is one of the things that, in my opinion, absolutely carries this game if that section of that game is appealing to you. There are other things that in pros and cons that we can go down the rabbit hole on, but to simply just write off and just say like the combat system isn't as good as the player base thinks is just a wild thing to hear, when one of the more notable praises that the community that does play this game has is its combat system, is its engaging combat system. I really feel like you haven't put enough time into practicing its system to have a more valid opinion on this thing, just because you can't play the game in a way that you want to. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. This game, you know, the combat system doesn't appeal to you based on what you're used to and based on what you like. But this is just such a fucking bad I just don't see this as a good take on the combat system. This is wild to hear from someone who fucking like probably can't properly combo on a class of his choice.
BDO's combat, when it came out,
Sure.
it was like Elden Ring. It was fucking insane. It was fucking amazing. It was unbelievably fucking amazing.
Are we backpedaling right now? Hold on. Let it play out.
But that was a long time ago, and it's not there anymore.
It's the same fucking system. What are you talking about, bro? What? What are you talking? It's still fucking there, man. What are you talking about? Bro, give me a fucking break.
But again, like my expectation was like very high. Now it's slightly lower, but it's still high enough to where I would be excited about the game, just not that excited.
I mean, I don't think anyone in the BDO community is honestly, truly deep down excited about Crimson Desert. I agree. It's something that we'll probably check out and try. But I think it's just going to be a one and done game.
Why are we comparing an MMORPG to a single player action game again? Let's compare BDO's combat to WoW or Final Fantasy 14. I mean, I'll tell you this. I think classic WoW's combat is better than Final Fantasy 14 or BDO.
He's entitled to the way he feels. But But I can say in confidence, as someone who has never played World of Warcraft, I just jumped into Classic WoW for the first time because that's what chat recommended for myself to try. A lot of the people from my audience in Black Desert don't like how slow paced it is and they don't like the way it looks. And that's totally fine. As someone who understands quite a bit about the BDO combat system, I can tell you right now, as soon as I jumped into World of Warcraft, everything is super understandable. It is super easy to digest. It's super easy to understand. And me personally, I actually do like the combat system in World of Warcraft, but I think that Black Desert's combat system is substantially better for much different reasons though.
Like, for example, like there's like little things in BDO where it's like you can't move diagonally as fast as you can move in like in forward.
Yes, you can. If you knew how to play the class and started like test driving things and skills and found a class you'd like to land on, you would learn that you actually can. But he hasn't gotten that deep into the combat system because it's an unappealing system to him.
Get good? Well, I would say that they should get good and make a direction system that feels better to play.
What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Play the fucking game for more than like a couple hours. To listen to this saying get good is like, man, take your own fucking advice here. Oh, this is great, man. I love this.
And I think that Crimson Desert, as I said, you know, it's okay, but not great. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah, we will move on. Now I want to see Blue's reaction to this. Oh God, now we've got the reaction to the reaction of the reaction with 2 BDO chats in here. Oh boy.
And I don't think that Black Desert Online's combat has evolved and is as nearly as good as people think that it is.
What are you comparing it to?
Right?
If you're
Right. That's what I'm saying, dude.
comparing it to like an action RPG, he's
Yep.
probably right.
Yeah.
Right? If you're comparing Black Desert Online, an MMO, a massive multiplayer online game, and its combat system with something like Elden Ring's combat system, let's be honest, BDO still wins. You can't compare the two. You can't even really compare because they're two completely different games. Elden Ring is going to win out on Black Desert's combat in some aspects.
Yep.
And then BDO is going to win in other aspects, but you're comparing apples and oranges.
Thank you. Fuck, man. So good hearing this.
Like, BDO's combat is leagues ahead of any of the other MMOs in the genre. It's not even remotely close.
Hot take though, it's so much more detailed that it actually hinders its enjoyability to people who want it to be more watered down. Because jumping into this combat system, you have to really like this game in order to really want to grind and play in it more. Because for players who haven't touched a combat system like this, it's really overwhelming, honestly. And not everyone wants to invest that level of effort. It's a lot.
Because, like, he's a Dark Souls, World of Warcraft fan. And let's be honest, guys, Black Desert's combat is not Asmongold's thing.
Nope.
He does not like the Black Desert combat system. Guys, he logged in last year for like 2 hours to play BDO. And do you know what he did? He quit because he couldn't put all his skills on the hotbar.
Yep, that's what I'm saying.
I love Asmon, but you can't really like expect him to like this game if the combat is going to be really complex like this.
And he can't play it in a way that he wants to, right? If you can't successfully play the game in a way that you want to, why would you enjoy it? Like, that just makes perfect sense.
It's the problem, guys.
I'm just not that excited.
Why'd you guys think I was going to get all mad?
I mean, I'll tell you this. I think Classic WoW's combat is better than Final Fantasy 14 or BDO.
Uh-oh.
Okay, there it is.
Uh-oh.
All right, let's run that back. Hold on. Let's
I
back
love how he runs this back. Isn't it funny hearing a second time?
Let's compare BDO's combat to WoW or Final Fantasy 14. I mean, I'll tell you this. I think Classic WoW's combat is better than Final Fantasy 14 or BDO.
That's fucking wild, dude.
That's BDO's only thing it has going for it. Combat and graphics. That's it.
Yep.
Right? Like, and even
The combat system carries this game. 100% carries this game if you were into it.
Can't move diagonally as fast as you can move in forward. That to me feels really bad to play.
what are we?
Did I not just say this? Gotta find your class, gotta understand it, and you will see that you have no fucking clue what you're talking about with what you just said.
All right, so diagonally would be like that way, right? Like where? Okay, like where? Which way do you want me to move? Right? Like I can move any which way. I can curve.
Sorry, what way? What way? What way? What way? Sorry, what way? What way? What way do you want to go? I'm confused. Backwards, 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 this way, sideways, forwards, more forwards. I'm sorry, what? What about mouse movement? What are we talking about here? Are we talking about the same game? Holy, all it took was just getting past level 18. We could have been somewhere. But again, like, people are entitled to how they feel. So I can't discredit it, but that is just wild.